Hi, this is Muthu Sangram again, session 7, Business Incubation. We are going to look at financing part 1 today. As usual, I would like you to spend 30 seconds to jot down what would you like to achieve um, end of this session. As always, you don't have to show me or show anybody. It's just for you to make sure the 20-25 minutes you spend is being worthy of your time. Go for it. I'm going to keep quiet for 30 seconds. Let's continue. Why do you need financial resources? Obviously, it's obvious. First of all, you need it to set up the incubator. Once you set up the incubator, you need to grow it. As you grow it, it needs to be sustainable. You also need funding to achieve your overall goals of the incubator. So these are the several reasons why you would need financial resources. So, in investment of an incubator, first investment you make before starting is to have a feasibility study. Very important to make sure and to ensure that your incubator is needed, required, and what you're going to address. We have spoken this in the last sessions. So that's the first thing you need money to invest in. Next, you need to have infrastructure. Without infrastructure, you can't house the incubator. So that's the next important activity you need to do. And the third activity is you need equipment. You need to be able to purchase equipment so your incubators can use them. And you need to have operational funding so you can use it for your operational of your incubator. You need also funding, investment for staff recruitment. So all these are some of the expenses you would incur. Now, what is the manager's responsibility? The incubator head, manager, CEO, whatever title you give them, they have to first of all record everything. They have to maintain an account recording. So it is important for them to maintain an investment spreadsheet to keep track of all the financial activity. They should have time, date, and so on. So you will be able to look at it in in the future to see when you need money, why you need money, and so forth. And the strategy here should be to develop for fundraising, which will help you to secure resources. So that's why you need to keep a record of what you're spending. You need to monitor your cash flow. With no cash flow, you can't run your incubator. Cash flow is different from revenue. You may have revenue, but you may not have cash flow. So you need to ensure this cash flow to keep yourself running. You need to monitor your investments. You need to monitor what you're spending money on. And you need to at times reduce expenses to ensure that there's enough cash flow for you to keep going. So this is a responsibility. The head of the incubator. You may address them as manager, CEO, director, whatever. Now, investments. First of all, you need investment for pre-operating expenses. This is prior to you starting the incubator. So this is very, very important. Unless you have some funding to start with, you can't start the operations of your incubator. So this is called pre-operating expenses. Here you would like to maybe look at a study, look at what you need to buy, you need to make an equipment list and so forth. Next, is your physical costs, which will include maybe infrastructure, rental, and so on. And the third is the equipment which you're going to use. So you need to make a list of equipment which you're going to use. You also need to have a budget for human resources because you need to pay the staff. Then you need to have general expenses, things like your air conditioning system, your printers, your computers, and so on. And you need to have some reserves. So times when you're not able to raise money or get a grant, you have enough money to keep your incubator going. Cost or expensive. First cost, and is probably the main cost, is to keep your staff. You got to pay for them. This can be your normal incubator staff, legal staff, social security benefits, medical aid payments, and so forth. You also need expenses on your utility. This can be for electricity, water, security, cleaning staff, whatever. All that is included here. And sometimes we may have to even give petrol expenses. And we might have to provide transportation to our staff and so on. So all this would be cost and expensive. We have to pay rent if the building is not yours. So that's another area you need to look at. Many people forget insurance. So we need to be able to insure the building against fire, theft, your staff for health insurance, and so forth. You need to be able to put up a good ICT infrastructure. So you need to have good internet connection. You got to have good computers. You got to have good networking facilities. All this will cost you money. We need money to also make some advertisement costs so we can promote the incubator. Very, very important. We need to also have a, a, a amount set out for your maintenance costs and then also business materials. So this could be stationaries, printing material and so forth. So all this requires expenses. So you need to make sure you have all this budgeted. And then revenue. How do you get revenue? You need to keep track as it makes a note of the rise and fall of an incubator. Keeping track, it's important. If you don't keep track of your revenue, your incubator might not survive because you do not have enough revenue. It is used to identify the source of revenue and increase and decrease and that fee. So you need to ensure that you are able to identify where to increase revenue and where the revenue is decreasing. All this has to be checked. Now, revenues can come from the incubator. It's generated through rental, equity, shares, uh, licensing fees, providing consulting services to them. This is the incubator generates. And then you need to generate third party as well. This could be from government grants, can be local or central or even international. And you need to get sponsorship from companies might be able to sponsor an event or two or even give you some funding to run specific programs throughout the year. So all this is how you generate revenue to your incubator. Now obstacles. First of all, your forecasting might not be accurate. So you need to be, it is difficult to say because anything can happen. There's a lot of uncertainty like our current status. The pandemic has completely changed your forecasting. You need to now stay at home. Many of your startups can't pay for rent, can't pay the rent. So you have to sort of forgive them and not force them. So these are risks. Now you're going to have risks for the next several months where your startups will not be able to pay you. So all this is what you need to take care of. These are called obstacles. And now the cash flow is important for your incubator. Without cash, you cannot run the incubator. So as I said earlier, revenues are different, profits are different, and cash flow is different. If you don't have the cash, it is difficult and it's almost impossible to run your incubator because you need to pay salaries and other bills. So it's absolutely important that you have good cash flow management, just like any good startup. Now, important step I've already described. First of all, is your financial stability depend on how you control your cash flow. Next thing, if you are able to give notice of harm that can happen to sustain and stability, you'll be able to control your cash flow. And this can help you make alternative plans to be able to get funding for your incubator. Now, what is the responsibility of the manager? First and foremost, for all managers, just like any CEO, is to ensure there's sufficient cash flow tracking. You need to track and make sure that you are able to be successful. Now you have to manage the payables and receivable on a regular basis. You need to be able to collect, you need to be able to pay. So this is very important. Often the trick is to collect faster and pay later. You need to build alliance with the bank balance. So the bank can help you at times if you need a slight overdraft. You need to monitor operations and assign activity to the needs and responsibility. All this is very important. Now, the financial management. For better financial management, you need to always look at reserves, especially during this time where you need to have reserves maybe for a year, 18 months. So that gives you a breathing space if anything goes wrong, like right now with the pandemic. So it's very important. You need to ensure your commitments are only to essential at that point of time can be postponed. So a lot of things if you can avoid. So this is where if you own the building, it helps you if you didn't have to pay rent. So you did if you're not able to collect rent, you're not stuck. Then projects can be brought forward in order to raise funds. All this has to be planned by the manager. And the business models have to be updated as we progress. As we get bigger or we get into trouble, we need to look at our business models so we can get better revenue. Important. Now, source of capital investment. As most are non-profit incubators, they reinvest back the money into the system, so to make maximum returns. We can look at private grants where citizens give you a grant, corporations give you a grant. Today in India, CSR money is allowed. So if you're able to make good connect with large organizations with large CSR money, you will be able to maintain your capital as well. Government subsidies, of course, government usually gives you grants up to 5 years, after which they expect you to be on your own. So all this is very, very important for you to make sure you are able to look at. Now, source of capital investment. You have multilateral programs where financial institutions will provide financing for national development or cross-border development. So this is important to look at. So you might be able to, you might be in an area where you're able to get a financial institute to give you some funding to have a development in that area. A lot of NGOs who have the same focus as you might be able to help you. Of course, there's always debt financing, but the problem with this is you need to return it. So if you don't make any revenue, it might be difficult to pay this back. So you might get in kind. Somebody might give you a building. They might donate equipment. They donate furniture and so forth. Equity funding. The organization provides funds in exchange for ownership. So they might say, in every startup, they'll take 2% and we will give you so much to run for over the year. So all this has to be worked through. Now, factors influencing. How do you raise your capital? Your physical location plays a huge role for people to be investing in you. And the number of incubators you're targeting. The larger you are able to target, the better your chances of raising money. Secondly, you need to target the right sector for that particular area in order to attract incubators. And of course, your overall objectives will also play a role in helping you raise your funding. Now, advantage of the owning the building, which I already told you, the rent keeps going up, so you don't have to worry too much about collecting rent if you own the building. So it's very, very important, and it has an advantage. It can also become a revenue because you own the building, so there's no expenses. It can also make the incubator self-sustainable. The usage of space will not require third-party negotiation. You can decide what you want to charge, what you want to do, because you are free to do everything on your own. So now grants and sponsorship. Grants come from government, sometimes from companies, where they would give you grant, and these are not repayable uh, income, which you can use for with certain conditions. So it has to do what the grantor tells you to do. So you need to make sure you are doing whatever they are looking for. So somebody might have a CSR grant giving you to ensure that rural health is taken care of. So if you focus on that, then you'll get a grant. Sponsorships often comes from companies where they would give you a sponsorship amount where you can do maybe lunch and learn, you can do hackathons, your events, and so forth. So these are some of the things you will need to work through. These are called grants and sponsorship. Now, debt financing, of course, is always available, but you got to pay these back. So there are two types. One, you get a commercial loan, then that would be high rent, sorry, not rent, high interest rates. So you have to pay back at bank rates of the day. And then there are subsidized loans, which you can take sometimes from maybe some commercial banks where the government has actually told them or has instructed them to give a discounted subsidized loans. So you got to work through where these loans are coming from. So you will be able to then take these loans and make sure your activities are running well and good. Debt financing should be the last thing you look at because this has to be paid back. So this would put a lot of stress and strain in your incubator. So you need to always be careful you do here. Now, source of revenue generation. We've already talked about rentals. Rentals will generate income. However, saying that at this time with the pandemic, it is very, very difficult for you to get rental because no one is actually making any money. Consulting services can still run during pandemic or whatever it is. So you need to make sure there's a lot of activities you try to do in terms of consulting. The other one's called profit sharing. Of course, you can take equity from these companies, which would help you. But all these are delayed payments. So unless they're successful, you will not be able to get your return. But since many of your incubators are non-profit, this could be the route you would like to maybe take. So it's important to do that. Now, we're going to stop there for today and I will do part 2 next week. Now, what is next? As always, you must identify your key takeaway from this lecture. We've had a very short lecture today. It's only probably about 16, 17 minutes. But however, you would have to pick up what you picked up today. How does it relate to you? And how will you share with others within your organization? So it's very, very important. You need to be able to do all that. Now, as always, we'll make our references. We have taken references from the InfoDev Business Incubation Toolkit, which we have used in this presentation. Now, thank you for your participation. You know how to contact me. My email is muthu.sangaram@vibrozone.com. My mobile number is there. And there's a couple of books on Amazon, which you might like to pick up and look at. And of course, you know my YouTube channel because you're watching this on this year. I thank you very much. And I look forward to my next session. See you then. Thank you, as always, for your participation.